Today we'll explore the unsettling stories of 5 Australian backpackers who vanished without a trace and remain missing in 2024. We'll examine their last known whereabouts, their efforts to find them, and the mysteries surrounding their disappearances. Join us as we delve into these haunting stories and seek to understand what happened. It was November 1982 in Hughenden, a small North Queensland, Australia town. Tony Jones, a 20-year-old from Western Australia, was on a hitchhiking adventure across the country with his brother Tim. He constantly contacted his family, making regular calls and updating them on his whereabouts. But one day the calls stopped and Tony vanished without a trace. Tony and Tim arrived in Townsville in October 1982 with plans to hitchhike separately to Mount Isa. Tony's last known location was the Grand Hotel in Hughenden. On November 3, 1982, he made a reverse charge call to his mother from a phone booth on the outskirts of Townsville, informing her of his plan to head towards Mount Isa. That was the last time anyone heard from him. The disappearance of Tony Jones is one of Queensland's most enduring mysteries. The case has baffled investigators and tormented Tony's family for over 4 decades. Despite numerous investigations, inquests, and appeals for information, Tony's fate remains unknown. In the early days of the investigation, police received a letter from an anonymous sender known only as Lochiel. The letter, postmarked in Cairns, suggested that Tony's body was buried near the Fullerton riverbed, close to the Flinders Highway. Despite extensive searches of the area, no remains were found. In 2002, an inquest ruled that Tony had died at the hands of person or persons unknown. However, no suspects were identified, and his remains were never located. Over the years, the reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person responsible for Tony's suspected murder has been increased several times, now standing at $500,000. Police have also offered indemnity from prosecution for any accomplice who provides crucial information. In November 2022, police uncovered new evidence pointing to an altercation at the Grand Hotel on the night Tony was last seen. Detective Sergeant Brendan Stevenson from the Townsville Criminal Investigation Branch believes that Tony was murdered, supporting this finding. The Grand Hotel, Tony's last known location, burned down in 2018, complicating the investigation further. Tony's family has been relentless in their pursuit of answers, tirelessly lobbying for progress in the investigation. Their efforts culminated in establishing Australia's Missing Persons Week in 1988. Tony's older brother, Mark Jones, expressed the family's ongoing frustration with the authorities' lack of communication, stating that they continue to beg the coroner and the police to engage with them regarding the developments in the case. In recent years, new leads have emerged, keeping the investigation alive. 3 women came forward with information about a man and his accomplice who allegedly confessed to a murder that could have been Tony. These shocking conversations have given the family hope and frustration, as they feel the police have been slow to act on these leads. Theories about Tony's fate range from a possible encounter with serial killer Ivan Milat to a violent altercation with local thugs or even succumbing to the harsh outback conditions. The Jones family has spent years retracing Tony's route and lobbying for continued investigations. They believe some key witnesses have not been interviewed and leads that need to be followed up. One such lead involves an Italian hitchhiker in Hughenden around Tony's disappearance. This man's presence in the town could have mistakenly led some witnesses to believe Tony was still alive and in the area. Despite police efforts, the Italian hitchhiker had not been interviewed until recently, when the ABC managed to locate him living on an island off the coast of Italy. He confirmed his visit to Hughenden in November 1982, but knew nothing about Tony's case. The Jones family has also pushed for a ground-penetrating radar search of the Hughenden slaughter yard, where they believe Tony's body might be buried. It has not yet been conducted, despite their willingness to fund the search. As the years pass, the family's determination to find answers remains unwavering. They continue to appeal to anyone with information, no matter how small, to come forward. The recent increase in the reward and the police's renewed focus on the case have provided some hope, but the lack of closure weighs heavily on them. It was early May 2022 in Cancun, Mexico. A 32-year-old Australian woman, Tani Shanks, lived in Mexico for 9 years. She was known for her adventurous spirit and love for exploring new places. Tani was with her partner Jorge Luis Aguirre Estudillo and their 2-year-old daughter Adeline. This trip to the Yucatan Peninsula was supposed to be a family getaway, but soon it turned into a nightmare. Tani's last known communication was a text message to a friend, warning her to remember Jorge's name just in case. The strange and unsettling message indicated that authorities should look into Jorge Luis Aguirre Astudillo if anything happened to her. This cryptic message was the first sign that something was wrong. On May 2nd, Adeline was found abandoned outside a church in Cancun, barefoot and alone. The sight of a 2-year-old wandering the streets shocked the people and raised immediate concern. Surveillance footage revealed Jorge dropping Adeline at the church before disappearing. This act of abandoning his daughter intensified the urgency to locate Tani and figure out what had happened. The last known sighting of Tani was at a police checkpoint on the highway towards Yucatan. She was seen in a car with Jorge and Adeline. Hours later, the car turned around and headed back towards Cancun. The timeline of their movements became even more critical as authorities pieced together the events leading up to Adeline's finding alone. The car, a white Toyota Tundra, was later discovered burnt out, adding another layer of mystery to the case. Daniel Shanks, Tani's brother, flew to Mexico immediately. He was desperate for answers and took extreme measures to find his sister, including offering a reward of $70,000 for any information leading to her safe return. Despite his efforts, the data was sparse. The police in Mexico were treating both Tani and Jorge as missing persons, but the family feared the worst. Tani's family confirmed that her relationship with Jorge had been deteriorating. Text messages between Tani and her friends revealed that she was planning to return to Australia with Adeline. She had discovered Jorge's infidelity and was dealing with emotional abuse. In one message, she mentioned locking herself in Adeline's room to escape Jorge's anger. The situation was tense and Tani was scared. After Adeline was found, she was brought back to Australia to live with her grandmother and aunt in Brisbane. The family hoped that Adeline might hold clues to what happened that night. They took her to specialists to try and retrieve information through drawing and other techniques, but it was challenging. Adeline was too young to articulate what she had witnessed. Back in Mexico, the search for Tani continued. Authorities conducted a thorough search of a jungle area near Cancun, based on new evidence that suggested the couple might have been taken there and killed. Cadaver dogs were brought in and several hectares of land were combed through, but no trace of Tani or Jorge was found. The family was left grappling with the unknown. Daniel continued to push for answers, engaging a private investigator to keep the investigation alive. The lack of information and the slow pace of the investigation could have been more frustrating. Daniel expressed frustration, stating they had been given no information and emphasizing that they would stay in the situation. The mystery surrounding Tani's disappearance only deepened with time. Theories began to emerge. One theory suggested that there was a domestic violence incident, and Jorge was on the run. Another theory speculated that Jorge was involved with criminal activity linked to Mexico's notorious drug cartels, and that their disappearance was payback. Tani's family remained hopeful but realistic. They knew that the chances of finding her alive were slim, but they clung to the hope that someone, somewhere, had seen something that could unravel the mystery. The uncertainty was unbearable, and they needed closure. As the months passed, the case of Tani Shanks became more and more perplexing. Despite the reward and the intense media coverage, no solid leads emerged. The burned car, the abandoned child, and the missing parents formed a grim puzzle that no one seemed able to solve. It was December 6, 2023, in Nangara, Western Australia. Dr. Natalie Casal, a 71-year-old retired general medical practitioner, told her family she would hike the Bibbulmun Track. This long-distance trail runs over 1,000 kilometers from Kalamunda, east of Perth, to Albany. Known for her love of the environment and a deep commitment to preserving wildlife, especially black cockatoos, Dr. Casal's announcement seemed consistent with her character. However, it would soon be revealed that her plans were far from typical. Dr. Casal was last seen alive at her home in Nangara, preparing for what she described as a hiking adventure with an organized group. Her son, Ramon Casal, reported her missing on March 7, 2024, after months of no contact. He shared his concerns with the police, noting that there had been no evidence that she ever visited the Bibbulmun track or began the hike she claimed to be planning. Ramon informed Daily Mail Australia that his mother was last seen alive at her home in Nangara on December 6, 2023. Despite over a month of investigations, the police have provided no evidence to his family indicating that she visited the Bibbulmun track or started the hike she claimed to be planning. Dr. Casal, who owned no car, had borrowed a lime green foldable bicycle from a family member. When police and family searched it, they found it missing from her home. She was fond of black cockatoo habitats in the Nangara pine plantation and near Yanchep and Pinjar, within bicycle distance of her house. Ramon urged locals near those areas to search the bush for possible answers, emphasizing the vast area that needed to be covered. Adding to the mystery, it was discovered only after the missing person investigation began that Dr. Casal had been hiding a serious health condition diagnosed in 2022. She had shared this diagnosis with only 3 people outside her family. This revelation shed light on her sudden retirement from medical practice that same year, a decision she never explained to her close relatives. The Bibbulmun track investigation turned up nothing. Despite police focusing their search on the track and suggesting she had been sighted in a southwest town shopping for supplies, no solid evidence supported these claims. Ramon pointed out that nobody had come forward to state that they had driven his mother to the Bibbulmun track, and she did not own a car. In a desperate plea, Ramon asked doctors who diagnosed or treated his mother to reach out to the police. He also highlighted the legal situation the family was in, namely that they were unable to take care of Dr. Casal's property. The situation left them distressed, seeking any leads that might help find her. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, police received information that Dr. Casal might have stopped in Northcliffe for supplies on the afternoon of March 14th. This would place her somewhere between Northcliffe and Walpole on her way to Albany. This sighting was the only potential clue, but it raised more questions than answered. Ramon described his mother as a private person who rarely shared her plans, making the disappearance even more puzzling. He pleaded with bushwalkers in the northern suburbs, Nangara Pines Plantation, and Nangara Moor River State Forest to be vigilant and report any signs of his mother. As the search continued, police searched bushland near her home and Lake Nangara but found nothing of note. They urged people between Northcliffe and Walpole to report any sightings. Adding to the complexity, Dr. Casal had a reputation for being eccentric. She was known for feeding wild cockatoos en masse on her property, a pastime that did not endear her to her neighbors. As a GP in the Pilbara, she was well known for rescuing baby kangaroos who had lost their parents to hunters. At one point, she had around 50 kangaroos roaming in and out of her home. Ramon expressed uncertainty about whether his mother was still alive. He acknowledged that she did not want to be found, as she had deactivated her phone, canceled some utilities, sold personal items, and deactivated her Facebook account. The family's distress was palpable as they faced an unresolved case and an ongoing investigation. They contacted the WA Coroner's Court to escalate the investigation, hoping to find some resolution. It was October 24, 2019, in Albury, New South Wales. Ruth Ridley, a 58-year-old mother of 3 from Port Macquarie, was last seen at a local supermarket. She was headed to meet her estranged husband, Gary Ridley, for a camping trip at Neil's Reserve in Walwa, Victoria. This trip was meant to reunite them with their children and grandchildren, but Ruth never returned home. Ruth was known for her kind heart and dedication to her family. Despite marital issues, she always hoped for better days. On October 30, 2019, a concerned family member reported her missing after not hearing from her for several days. The search for Ruth began immediately, with both New South Wales and Victoria Police involved. The first clue surfaced on October 26, 2019, when Ruth's dark blue Mitsubishi Pajero was seen towing a caravan towards Tumbarumba. The next day, the vehicle was spotted again without the caravan. Gary Ridley, Ruth's 61-year-old estranged husband, was seen buying fuel, the last confirmed sighting of him. On November 5, 2019, police found Ruth's car in Shelley, Victoria, about 40 kilometers from Neil's Reserve. Inside, they discovered Gary Ridley's body. The post-mortem showed he had taken his own life. Ruth, however, was missing. Detective Inspector Adrian Telfer and Detective Leading Senior Constable Andrew Leonard led the investigation. expressing deep concern for Ruth's welfare. They believed Ruth had been in a violent relationship with Gary for over 40 years. Despite not finding Ruth's body, police were convinced Gary was responsible for her disappearance and probable death. Following the discovery of Gary's body, extensive searches were conducted around Koryong and Walwa. Specialized cadaver dogs were brought in, but no trace of Ruth was found. Detective Leonard mentioned up to 4 other campsites at Neal's Reserve when Ruth and Gary were there and appealed for those campers to come forward with any information. Ruth's disappearance devastated her family. Nathan Ridley, one of her sons, struggled to accept the idea that his father might have killed his mother. It tore him apart inside because he didn't want to believe his father was capable of such an act. Nathan found it hard to reconcile the loving father he once knew with the man who allegedly committed such a heinous crime. The Ridley family had been plagued by domestic violence for years. Ruth's close friend Marion Bremner shared that Ruth always feared Gary might kill her. Despite this fear, Ruth stayed with Gary, citing their marriage vows. Marion recalled Ruth as a sister and missed her dearly. Investigations revealed that Gary was a former Queensland policeman and a highly manipulative individual. Security camera footage showed Ruth and Gary together in the Albury supermarket on October 24th. Further footage showed their car towing a caravan towards Tumbarumba and later returning without it. A photo found on Ruth's phone showed Gary holding a fish he had caught at Neal's Bend Reserve on the Murray River around October 27th. Police believe this photo was a crucial clue to the events leading up to Ruth's disappearance. Despite the extensive investigation, the case remains unresolved. Police have filed a report for the coroner, indicating they believe Gary Ridley is responsible for Ruth's death. Detective Parker, who started the investigation, expressed hope of finding Ruth, stating that finding her, regardless of the circumstances, would provide closure and allow them to give her back to her family. Nathan Ridley, now coping with the loss of both parents, hopes his mother's story will be remembered and that cases of domestic violence will not be forgotten. He urges anyone in a similar situation to seek help and leave the abusive relationship. He emphasized that it also impacts human lives and the children involved in the relationship. The search for Ruth Ridley continues, and the police are still appealing for information from the public. They are particularly interested in speaking to anyone camping at Neal's Reserve on the weekend of October 26th and 27, 2019. Detective Leonard emphasized the importance of finding Ruth's body to provide closure for her family. It was May 25, 2020, in Hervey Bay, Queensland. Paul Brazier, a 37-year-old father of 2, left Urangan Boat Harbor at 1:30 p.m. for a fishing trip. He was an experienced fisherman with all the necessary safety equipment, including life jackets and a radio distress beacon. Despite this, Paul never returned, leaving his family and community shocked. Paul's wife, Terry Brazier, made an emotional plea on Facebook, sharing their last photo and expressing her love for him. She wrote, "Please, Paulie, we need you. Love you forever and ever." The couple had been married since August of the previous year and had 2 young children. Terry and the family knew something was wrong when Paul didn't return home. On May 27th, after not hearing from him for 2 days, they reported him missing to the police. A central air and sea search was launched, involving multiple agencies and marine rescue vessels, covering the waters off Hervey Bay and Fraser Island. On May 28th, Paul's white 2002 Yalta, 5.4 meters long, half-cabin powerboat, was overturned between Fraser Island and the Wide Bay coastline. The sight of the upturned boat was grim, but there was still no sign of Paul. Hervey Bay Water Police Sergeant Paul Bacon stated that the investigation would now focus on examining the boat to understand what might have happened. He acknowledged that the family and friends were understandably upset and distressed, and hoped the investigation would provide the closure and answers they sought. Paul's disappearance left a deep void in the lives of those who knew him. His best friend, Matt Spargo, spoke about the pain and uncertainty they were all facing, acknowledging that they still had no real answers apart from the gut-wrenching fact that Paul was gone. Spargo set up a GoFundMe page to support Terry and the children financially, writing that Paul was the best friend he had ever had, a fantastic father, and someone who would do anything for his friends and family. The goal was to raise enough money to give Paul's family some financial breathing room to process this tragedy. Despite extensive search efforts, Paul's body was never found. The official search was called off on May 31st, leaving the family and friends with unanswered questions and a painful lack of closure. The area where Paul disappeared is popular among recreational fishermen and known for its abundant marine life, including mackerel, marlin, tuna, coral trout, snapper, trevally, and sharks. Paul had fished there many times before, always returning home safely. The community has rallied around Terry and her children, offering support and sharing heartfelt messages. Friends expressed their heartbreak for the family, sending love and strength. Others supported and reassured Terry that they were nearby if she needed anything, extending their thoughts and love to her and her children. During their grief, the family is left to piece together what might have happened. Paul was an experienced fisherman and his boat was in excellent condition. It had all the necessary safety gear, yet he didn't set off the emergency beacon. Was it a sudden accident? Or did something unexpected happen that caused the boat to capsize? Sergeant Bacon mentioned that they were transitioning into the investigative phase of the marine incident. He acknowledged the unfortunate news and emphasized that the primary goal in any search and rescue operation is to bring families and their loved ones back together. However, he noted that they had yet to achieve that. The investigation into Paul's disappearance continues, with police examining the boat and gathering any possible clues. But for now, the family and friends are left with haunting uncertainty and the hope that somehow they will get the answers they need.